perceptions are our reality in many aspects because what we're seeing is what we consider to be real. And what we're seeing is considered to be on our beliefs and our perceptions. Those can be changed when you become aware of them. Hello and welcome. You've landed on Zero Limits Living. Every week, I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. The show has become so popular so quickly, you can now see it or hear it on 1,000 platforms across the galaxy. Soon, it will be on other planets. But you're probably on this planet. You're probably enjoying it on some sort of platform, and you'll be able to enjoy this episode and all the episodes. I'm putting them all in one place. Zero Limits Living TV.com, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. You can also go there and sign up to be notified whenever there's a new episode. Next, people are always asking about coaching. Coaching is very trendy these days. I started a coaching program 20 some years ago. It's trademarked. It's a system that works. It's already been tested. Go to miraclescoaching.com and find out for yourself. No charge, no obligation. Miraclescoaching.com. My latest program is called mentaltimetravelsystem.com. You have to go look just to find out what that's all about. mentaltimetravelsystem.com. My latest book, Unexpected Kindness, it's at unexpectedkindnessbook.com, or just, of course, go to Amazon. The news is the audio version of it was released today. So the audio of Unexpected Kindness is on Amazon or probably wherever you would go and get audio versions of books. So this show is called Zero Limits Living. And what we're looking for is an exploration of how to live differently, how to think differently. So it should be no surprise to you that when I came across the book about quantum thinking, I had to have the guest on. The book is called Do You Quantum Think? Well, do you? Do you quantum think? New thinking that will rock your world. And it's by Dianne Collins. And I have Dianne Collins here. Dianne, how are you?
I am absolutely great and delighted to be here with you and with everyone who is watching, listening, tuning in whatever way they do across your,
Yeah.
wow, 1,000 venues. That's fantastic.
And we're going to Mars next, I think, because, they're got open businesses up there. So why not have a podcast or vodcast? And why not it be mine?
Well, I'll tell you, it should be yours. I've been binging your podcast, both on, well, I guess I've been listening on iTunes
Oh, wow.
podcasts and also on watching a little bit on YouTube and loving it. And just,
Oh,
you have
thank
so
you.
many talents, obviously. And first of all, I'm blown away by the number of books that you've written. And secondly, I think, well, maybe I wrote 80 books all in one book so far. I don't know. But anyway, I do think that you have the gift in terms of being a show host, Joe, of really bringing out the most interesting, fascinating information and, the soul of your guests. So that's my intent for us today.
Well,
Yeah,
thanks a lot. Your flattery has made me almost speechless.
no,
I wasn't counting on that or expecting it. Thank you. I'm teasing, but thank you very much. I do feel it. I do accept it. That's a very high compliment. Also coming from you because you've done 500 or more interviews.
I
When I
have.
was reviewing your bio, it said 500 interviews. And I thought, well, what am I going to ask that hasn't been asked already? But here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
I love your book. I recommend your book. And yes, you probably did write 80 versions or 80 supplements of a book that went in this one because it's so detailed. It's so rich. It's a masterpiece. I love your insights. I love the humor. I love the twinkle. There's a little twinkle of humor that's around the book. And I think twinkle is actually a sign of wisdom. So I think you're very wise, and I think your book is a masterpiece, and I want everybody to go get it. But here's my job. I have to dumb this down and make it as practical as humanly possible in the very tight restraint of time that I have so I can help as many people as possible. So let's jump in. What is quantum thinking?
The big question that everyone asks. Well,
Right.
and there are so many ways, my husband, Alan Collins, master quantum think coach, is my partner in all things. And every
Mhm.
time someone asks us that question, we both look at each other like after 25 years of doing it. What are we going to say now? We're waiting to hear what's the other one going to say. But let me say it this way.
Okay.
Um, Quantum thinking is actually a system of thinking. You have a system of coaching, and you know that systems are very important.
Mhm.
And what it does is it takes us from thinking that has been conditioned, and for the most part, unknowingly, even for the brightest and the best of us, conditioned by the industrial age worldview, also known as scientific materialism, where scientists declared only physical matter is real. So, oriented us in our thinking, when I say us, I mean humanity,
Mhm.
around the physical dimension, even though we consider ourselves spiritual, we know about the soul, the divine source, but yet in our thinking, which is important, though it gets bad, thinking gets a bad rap, I wrote in the book,
Mhm.
because we want to be in touch with the heart. But let me go back so I don't circle here. That
Mhm.
what is quantum think? It takes us from uh, l- somewhat limited thinking beyond limits
Mhm.
to the
Mhm.
limitlessness of a quantum worldview. So I say it like this: we're in a quantum age, yet we're still very much under the influence of an industrial age view
Mm.
that, as I said, focused on the physical, what we can glean with our ordinary five senses. It's an either or reality. The universe as machine, break it down into its constituent parts, see how cause and effect they fit together, and maybe we can control nature. And so it's not like we're thinking that, Joe. It's that it's in the background
Yeah.
of our culture. And so, well, I know you'll probably ask me. So, what I did is I thought, I looked in the world when I was pretty young. Well, we can get to that later. But anyway, and I thought, there's something wrong with this picture. I think I got off on the wrong planet because it looked like who we aspire to be, who we want to be, our virtues, our greatest, highest aspirations in life, our greatest inspirations in life. And yet, you read the daily news and it looks like anything but, maybe even over the family dinner table. So my quest was, how do we go from merely knowing the wisdom, which is available now, 6,000 years or more at
Mhm.
the touch of a smart device? And
Mhm.
how do we go from knowing it to living it? And that's where I say I had a revelation that we actually think under the umbrella of the system of our prevailing worldview, the assumptions, beliefs, ideas. So, quantum think is a system of 21 principles and practices for the mind and awareness that I call distinctions in thinking, that bring together cutting edge quantum principles that I know a lot of people with us in this conversation right now are aware of, but blending it together with universal wisdom common to most mastery traditions, wisdom traditions. And what came through me, I have to say, it came through me. I didn't choose quantum think, it chose me,
Hmm.
is a way of making that practical so that we live it in a very literal sense of embodying the more expansive, up to date, an accurate worldview that we call the quantum worldview.
I love it. I love it. Now I'm very excited. I'm starting to get these tingles up my spine. It's telling me, oh, this is really juicy and there's more good stuff to come. And I'll tell you what's really exciting to me, because I want this to be fleshed out a little bit by you. And what's exciting is this information is thousands of years old. It is in books. And today, because of Google and all these other tools and bells and whistles and apps and this, that, and the other, it's at our fingertips, as you had mentioned here. It's not new. We also have the movie The Secret that came out in 2005 or 2006. A lot of people watched it. So they're absorbing at least one of the laws on creating their own reality. And yet they can't do it, Dianne. This is the rub. They can watch the movie, get excited, then go home and practice an aspect of visualization, intention, manifestation, not have it happen. And suddenly they're just back in the old worldview, in my opinion, feeling like a victim. And what I want to do here, and I'm kind of being forceful with you because I have limited time and I want the nuggets, I want the gold, I want the how-to. I want to know, how do we make this real? Somebody who's struggling right now, they got a money issue, they saw The Secret, maybe even they read part of your book, if not all of it, because you have a big section on money in the back and they maybe not have gotten to it, but they're struggling. How do they break out of that old way of thinking and get into a quantum think, or in the name of the show, zero limits living? So that's a mouthful. So I hope I didn't hit you with a snowball in the
No,
face, but
no,
I'm trying
no.
to. uh,
I'm really glad you're saying this, Joe, because to me, what's going on right now at this amazing juncture where we're already in, I would say, on the precipice of a quantum leap in what? In consciousness, even though it doesn't appear, we know that, right? Two realities kind of going on. The one where it's the breakdown of what
mm,
is going on here, or I call the dregs in the coffee pot, and the other where it is time to wake up and everyone yearns for this. So how do we make it practical? That was my quest. And this is why the system becomes so important, because you can know a lot of these principles. And I am going to give a very practical one that will take all of us. I always include myself in it because, as I like to say, mastery is a moment by moment proposition. So every moment is new
Beautiful.
and every moment is an opportunity to choose in mastery as an intent. Quantum think is a
Okay.
mastery practice. So anyway, so when you think of a system, and I like to break it down very simply, like if you go into a supermarket, there's a system. So you go in with your list. If you didn't have a system, you'd have to go searching, like where's the bread. But because of the system, you're embraced by it, and you still have free will, what you want to choose within that system. If you go on a road system, it's a similar situation. You're not wandering from Miami to Los Angeles, hoping for the best. There's a system, and the system takes it with you. So when you have these principles, as you wisely and aptly said just now, this is universal wisdom. This wisdom is not only ancient, we could say it's eternal. This is eternal wisdom. And this is not wisdom that belongs to me. This belongs to all of us. So what is happening is when we make distinctions for people, and you do this in your work, and this is what I do in my work, what we're doing is we're bringing something into the forefront of our awareness right now, in this moment, in such a way that we actually have a shift. We have a quantum leap. We have a transformation in our awareness that takes us, it actually makes a transformation past, present, and future. But the point that I want to make to everyone is that this wisdom is in you, and maybe it's lying dormant. So when we talk about it, when we bring it to light, It's in you. You say, well, where is it? In my brain? No. Mind, okay. The mantra of quantum think, when you master your mind, you master your life. Mind is not the cognitive left brain, click, click, click. And mind is not synonymous with brain. So the what I mean by mind is the individualized form of the all-pervasive consciousness. So that is, we're not only connected to divine source, we are divine source. So I, I hope that people can hear that right, and I know you'll clarify it. But the point being is that because divine source is infinite, infinite wisdom, infinite information, infinite intelligence, infinite possibility,
Hmm.
that we are have the opportunity with our own awareness to connect into that, because we're already connected into it. So that was my preamble to giving the practical
All
exercise.
right. That was a mouthful, and I love that lead up there. So I'm really excited to find out what this next step is. This is a practical example or a technique, or what is
It's
this?
yes,
Okay,
it's a practical example. So
great.
you could say, and one of the distinctions in quantum think, the number 3 distinction is infinite possibility. And this is what your show, and I know your work is all about too. It's that we're in an infinite possibility universe. What does that mean? Well, wherever we land, you know, our awareness in any given moment, that is our reality right now. So I like to say, like, the brain is like the computer, right? The processor, receiver, transmitter. The the mind is like the internet, the infinite mind, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the sublime, right? So, what is your reality? What is your experience at any moment, wherever you decide to click? So, we have that opportunity too. It's like in infinite possibility universe. We could give ourselves whatever experience we want. We may not be able to have complete control over the circumstances that befall us, that come our way. However, we have 100% command, we can, sovereignty over how we relate to the circumstances, and
Mhm.
therefore how we experience it. So what stands in the way of infinite possibility thinking? What are automatic patterns and habits that are just there? Okay,
Mm.
so I say blame it on the industrial worldview. Mechanical worldview, in many ways, we've become mechanical too. And we need our mechanicality, right? We want to type on a computer, we want to drive a car, whatever it is, play the piano. I'm looking at mine there. And so, obviously, everything, the way that our body works, such genius that we can't even fathom the genius in it. So, but when in an ordinary, everyday way, when I call them, and I borrowed this term from science, learned it from my friend, Dr. Fred Alan Wolf, who I
Oh,
call
yes.
my mentor in quantum physics, and he
Mhm.
was in the secret with you. And, least action pathways, least hyphen action pathways,
Mm.
the way the thought or the energy goes, simply because it's been that route before.
Mm.
So that's the automatic. Some people call it a knee jerk. But what I like to call it, the least action pathways are what interferes with our ability of infinite possibility thinking. So
Mm.
that, and that the least action pathways in quantum think are very important. Give them no meaning. It's just like, oh, there's that least action pathway thought.
Mm.
And we say, let it fly by. We live here in on the ocean, Sunny Isles Beach, Miami, Florida. And a lot of pelicans are flying by. And, my husband, Alan, and I like to say, you don't hop on the back of every pelican that rides by. So you don't hop on the back of every thought that rides by. You
Mm.
don't have to identify with every thought. And so this frees you. So what I'm giving everyone now is the easy, 1, 2 or 1, 2, 3 step, how to free yourself forever from thoughts that limit you or give you any kind of unwanted or undesired experience, whether you have the thought about yourself or anyone. Now, why is this valid? So I'm going fast because
No,
I'm
do it.
a
This is like
time
a seminar.
constraint. Okay.
This is like a
So
seminar, so go ahead and do it.
okay, but I don't want to give that. I want to be in a conversation with you because we have other things to discuss. But I just
Hmm.
want to give this practical thing because when you realize that we have been conditioned in our thinking in this kind of mechanical least action pathway way, all you have to do is, oh, I'm not feeling too good having that thought. Interrupt the thought. Here's what makes it valid. From a quantum world view, there are no fixed and absolute realities, right? Everything is energy in flux, informed by intelligence, intelligent energy that's conscious. So other than divine, which we could
Hmm.
say, okay, that could be your absolute. But for ordinary everyday people like we are,
Right.
that there's nothing, everything is always in flux. Therefore, in every moment, you have an opportunity to shift your reality. Now, especially, I'm not giving the whole system here, but especially when you get embraced by the system. So what you're doing when you're reading Do You Quantum Think or watching my video masterclass or whatever it is, listening to us right now, what you're doing is you're activating
Mm.
that in you because we exist in fields. So that's the other very important quantum worldview, the principles. We exist in fields. And that's why we don't even know where those least action thoughts came from. Some of them aren't even ours. We have no problem saying, hi, Stuart tapped me on the shoulder and told me to go this way. But we're also picking up thought waves that aren't
Mm.
ours. So we don't have to, you have a least action pathway thought, you don't have to identify with it. It's certainly not the absolute truth. You can interrupt it. And what do you do then? Create a new intent that shifts your personal resonance and your experience in that moment. And that's it. The 1, 2, the 1, 2, 3, right?
Right.
Notice the thought, least action pathway. Don't give it any meaning. Interrupt it. Don't have to own it. Don't identify with it and say, okay, what can I displace that with? Let me create the intent of how I want to set the context and trajectory for my experience right now.
All right. I applaud you for that. And thank you for being so generous and explaining it to everybody, because what you did is just empower people. You just empowered them to take back control of their own mind and their own perception. And I'm going to push.
Mhm.
See, you're leaving me speechless here.
I'm
I'm
used to
I'm
it.
going to push a little bit because what I want to know, and I personally wrestled with this, Diane, so it's a sincere question. I want to know how much control we really have. What I keep hearing is that, yes, we can control our thoughts. We can change our thoughts, which will change our perceptions. Our perceptions are our reality in many aspects because what we're seeing is what we consider to be real. And what we're seeing is considered to be on our beliefs and our perceptions. Those can be changed when you become aware of them. You're teaching people how to be aware of them. So now we're going back. There's somebody watching this show right now and they're broke and they're sitting on the couch in Idaho or somewhere, and they got 2 kids and they're unemployed and they're going, okay, quantum think. I want to quantum think myself into riches. I got to pay the rent. And maybe they're interrupting their thought because the old thought is, I got to get a job or I got to go on welfare. I got to do whatever the thought says. But they learn from you, they're going to interrupt that thought. They're going to replace it with something like, oh, I'm in a prosperous universe. Let me just create something that I can sell or some version of that. How much control do we have over what I'm calling outer reality, which of course, it's in flux, as you said? How much control?
Believing Before Seeing, a new book by Candace Barr. teaching you how to believe into existence. Available now for pre-order.
Well, as I said, we cannot control every circumstance. So
Mhm.
you're looking in your checkbook and your bank account and online, whatever, and there's not too much there. Okay. However it got there, the point is this, is that we know what I call the nature of consciousness, that there are 5 natural faculties of mind
Mm.
that really are throughout the quantum think system. They're throughout your work, um, but I'm distinguishing them as intent, because this is what we didn't learn in traditional education, that's
Mhm.
focused around the physical old world view, as I lovingly call it, of the brain, maybe the brain connections. But I'm creating that. It's being taught now in schools, but not yet manifests, let's say. That What are the 5 natural faculties of mind? Intent, which creates; intuition, which connects; and subtle energy, which attunes; resonance, which manifests;
Mm.
and meditation, which I consider a natural faculty of mind, not only a practice, though the practice is very important to
Hmm.
activate that, but the meditative faculty, that what we call the silence within, that inner still point, is what, and they all work together. So what does the person do who finds themselves in a situation? And one of the distinctions that I make in Quantum Think is the distinction between intent and intention. Now, a distinction is not the truth. It is something that is a creative use of nuance in language and meaning that gives us an experience. Everything in language is how we experience life anyway. People say wordless, but even if you say wordless, that's a word. Okay. That's another conversation. So intent and intention, why is that distinction important? Because intent, I consider the activation of the resonant field, of our personal resonant field. And as you're the master, right? Law of attraction, this is how it works. Now, in science, Fred Alan Wolf again, they don't use the word law of attraction. It's more a spiritual law, but they use the word sympathetic resonance, that
Uh,
whatever is in the frequency range, this is a scientific fact, that will be attracted, right? You sing too high and the glass shatters. So intent is, as we know, said in the present tense as if it's already happening. However, and it activates the field to attract many results that are consistent with that intent. And we can give an example in a moment.
mhm.
Whereas intention, so it's not one is better than the other, but you'll hear why I make the distinction. Intention, we think of as a course of, it's still also, created in thought, a course of action that leads to a specific measurable result. And this is
Mm.
why a lot of people, they say, okay, well, if this mind stuff really works, then I'll write the secret.
Right, right.
I want $1 million in my bank account by next week, and then it doesn't show up, because that's an intention. And the measurable results will be consistent with your personal resonance, because this
Mm.
is what makes the magnetic attraction. Do
Mm.
you go agree with
Yes,
that?
I'm following. This is great. This is great. That's a
Okay.
wonderful distinction. Okay.
Yeah. And so it makes it easier for people, because if I say, and then, you kind of have to trick the mind. When you embrace a quantum worldview, you actually have to trick the mind, because we are so conditioned to just believing the circumstances,
Mhm.
right? That, that's how many times you hear people say, well, that's just the way it is. That's
Right.
just the way he is. That's just the way the government is. Well, there'll always be war. There'll always be people dying of hunger. No, that is not a limitless way of thinking.
Mm.
We're in zero limits. That means wherever we can take ourselves and experience that in our own personal resonance. This is what's important.
Mm.
So if we could say, and I often recommend this for the money part, I'd
Mhm.
like to hear what you recommend too. I haven't read your money book yet. I'm kind of binging on all your work right now. I haven't read that yet. But anyway, uh, I like to say, what can you be in alignment with yourself?
Mm.
You could say that I am excited the way my financial prosperity is unfolding every day. Now, very important quantum worldview fact, okay? Since there are no fixed and absolute realities, right? So what's creating the reality? The intent. The intent is a context. It's not a new truth. So
Mm.
if you say, I'm broke, I'm rich, um, neither one may be that's not a good example, but you'll get the idea that neither one is okay. Let me give a better example. If
Mm.
I say, you know, I'm a great leader, is that the absolute truth? Well, I may have evidence for it. I may not have evidence for it, but I can live from that context as my stated, consciously generated, consciously created intent.
Mm.
This is conscious, deliberate creation. If I say I'm not a good leader, it's exactly the same. Neither one of those statements are the truth. It's a question of what I choose to live from. So the famous, I think, Henry Ford quote and the
Mm.
Pygmalion and all of it, and in quantum science, it's called the observer effect. Quantum think is a core principle: observer created reality. What you bring to your observation is what you get. So it's knowing in the background that we exist in fields, and therefore we will attract what we're resonating, what we're emanating, because that's a scientific law and it's a universal spiritual law, as we know. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, since everything is shifting and changing, energy in flux informed by intelligence, that as things are shifting, it's what it's going back to. What did we click on the internet? What are we clicking on in our reality? Well, I'm going
Mm.
to click on, you know what? I'm a great leader. And what's going to show up? Or I'm happy about the way my finances are going. What's the alternative? I'm broke, I'm unhappy, I'm miserable, I'll never make any money. Why, as my husband and I say to each other, when, hey, we're not perfect masters here either. But when we go into that least action pathway, who cares where it came from? You'll never know anyway. It doesn't
Mm.
matter. The idea is in a mastery practice, you can introduce. It's like we say to each other, why do you want to be in that reality? And then, that's all we have to do. It's like a signal. I'll say something like, oh, what if nobody buys my book today? Why do you want to be in that reality?
Mhm.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you.
This
I
is
love
good.
you.
The
Right?
I love all of this, Diane. Thank you. I want to acknowledge one of the most profound metaphors or symbols you've been giving me to all of us right now. It's in my head now. Is what reality am I clicking on? Because I have that in my head. It's like, okay, when there's a thought or a vision or a worry or a concern or a negative belief, it's like, oh, I clicked on that for a second. Which one do I want to click on? Oh, let's go back to Zero Limits Living. Click. And now I have taken control in a sense, and I've selected my viewpoint. So I love the image because I got a mouse right here. So it's real easy for me just to pretend there's one in my head. And I just, with intent, clicked on it. So thank you for that. But you just raised the question. You said you and your husband might be walking and one or the other would notice when one of you had gone with a thought that needs to be clicked out, or you can click on a new one. What if somebody's alone? What if they're watching the show for the first time and now they're getting inspired? They're going to run out and go get your book, Do You QuantumThink, and your website's DianneCollins.com. They can get all kind of info, but they're alone. Maybe they feel like, oh, my husband, my spouse, my partner, my brother, my sister, my kids, they're not going to be on board. As soon as they say, oh, I'm enjoying the process of collecting cash, which is coming to me, and they've clicked on this new thought, everybody around them goes, you're naive, you're Pollyanna, you are crazy, your head's in the sand, that's not real. How do you do it when you're alone?
Well, first of all, by the way, just to clarify what you just said, like try the intent should be directed yet general. So it's open-ended, limitless, right?
Yes. Good.
So I'm happy with the cash coming. Like I'm happy if I say I'm happy about the way my financial status is unfolding. It's much less, it's directed, but not specific. Okay, you're alone. This happens to me all the time because most of the time we are alone, even if we're with someone. Right?
Okay.
I mean, in a sense, it's a multidimensional reality. So we know, I call it living FD. We're never alone. But in certain ways in our thoughts, we're alone. So I could be in the shower, and when I'm in showering, and the whole idea of water or anything or going in the ocean, that I like to allow, because I'm thinking a lot in my work, I like to allow my mind to just go free, right? Like just wander, like just let go, don't try to control anything. And so, upon occasion, you may be surprised to learn that I have some thoughts. My mind goes where I don't want it to go. Okay. This is your alarm.
Say it's not true.
Right. And so, but here's what I do, because this becomes a way of life. See, when you're quantum thinking, or, the system has embraced you, but you're choosing, but you're awakening yourself all the time because that's your intent for mastery. What's the alternative? Mediocrity, so I encourage everyone an intent for mastery. I'm in the shower, I'm having and I get a whole scenario, and I just say to myself, wait a minute, I don't like that thought. Let me go somewhere else. And it's that simple. I mean, this is instantaneous. Transformation is instantaneous. And it's that simple when you know your thought is not the truth. It's just a thought. So you could make a distinction between thoughts that visit, I like to call, from the thoughtosphere, right? Some of them you don't even know where they came from, and thinking thoughts that you originate. And this is an important distinction as well. It's like, I don't want that thought. Let me come up with something else right now, because I need to shift my experience. So it doesn't matter if you're with someone. However,
I hear you.
Yeah.
I love this. Now I have to, again, I may sound like I'm skeptical or critical, but all I'm really doing is trying to understand in a way that helps everybody watching or listening. So I'm a fan, I'm a friend. I love your book. I rave about your book, give you an endorsement for the book, tell everybody to go buy the book. It's a masterpiece of a book. And yet I have a couple questions. So one of them is, what's real? And as I say that, I'm thinking of Ayn Rand, who said something like, you can deny reality, but you cannot deny the consequences of reality. And that's from, I might have paraphrased it because I didn't know I was going to quote her, but it's coming up with the idea of what's reality. I know from the confusing world of quantum science, quantum mechanics, quantum success, quantum this, quantum that, that all of this is a quantum mess. It ends up being quantum confusion,
Hmm.
which is why I
Right.
love your book, because you're bringing clarity to this. But the people that are watching the show right now, they haven't read your book, but we got you. And what we want to do is extract the wisdom and the practicality and the simplicity that'll help us get through our lives with a zero limits living mindset. So
Okay.
what's real? How do we pick that? How do we
Well, here's the
understand that?
thing. It's that's this is what I love about you. Why I said that at the beginning, and I had this intent before we came on the show together, Joe. That this is like I had a lot of intents for all of us, but that we're going to have fun learning together, right?
Yeah.
Expanding together, because this is
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
happens in the conversations with you. And
Hmm.
that's why I really love your podcast. Anyway, not to flatter, but just yes.
I
So
welcome it. Thank you.
what's real? We
Yeah.
all love it, right? Why not? Right. Reality and what's real, to me, these need have a nuance in meaning, because
Mm,
you could say, I'll use this excuse to take a drink. This
I'll,
glass of water, right,
mhm,
is delicious. That's real. That
mm,
reality um, is, again, how we choose to land on it. Because when I look in the world, and this always fascinated me since I was came onto the planet and thought, where am I in the wrong place? But that um, there are so many different realities that we all live in on this planet.
mm.
And we're not even talking about, the galaxy, our solar system, other galaxies, the billions and billions. You hear these terms from science and astrophysics, and it's unfathomable, yet it's real. But what is the reality is our experience in every moment. And,
Mhm,
remember Ram Dass, right? Be here now and with nothing
mhm,
added.
mhm,
And so I think what's important is, what is the intent behind your question? I'll do a little push here now. So when you ask that question,
Yeah. Mhm,
what what is it you want to get at? Because the reality, we could, I know that you and I have a lot in common that we haven't actually discussed, because we're meeting here kind of for the first time, at
mhm,
least, right? Live, and
mhm,
we've met virtually in many ways. But um, when you think about infinite, limitless, right? Zero limit reality, can never really define it, but you can say there are infinite ways that you can look at reality. And so then it comes to me, and I want to again go back to you and ask,
mhm,
why
mhm,
are you asking that question? Is that, what do we really want? What do we want to experience?
mhm,
And if we know, what is our purpose? Why are we here? I mean, to me, it is to become masterful beings, like all the great masters have said. Part one of my book, Mastery. What did they all say? Right? Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, whoever. You can be like me and more. And you realize that we are manifestations of divine source. So why are we here? We are here to, and I heard my friend Gail Hogue talk about it on one of your
mhm,
episodes. Um, you know, we all say it, to manifest love, to experience love. But if you take that, yes, that's foundational. That's fundamental. It's fundamental and it's everything. But meanwhile, there's real life, practical life in action, daily life in between. And that's where we have choice when you have awakened awareness. So,
Mm.
which is the real, will the real reality please stand up? Right.
Right.
So, where do you ask that question from? Like, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, that's great. And I
Asking
can
it.
already see you and I are going to have a couple more conversations. First of all, we have like 8 minutes left in this one, and I have other questions I want to ask. And then I think we can go even deeper with a further conversation at some point. All right, where am I coming from? I'm coming from the woman who is broke. The person I made up, but could be real, that's out there in the universe watching this show in particular. And what it sounds like we've given her is a way to control her perception. So she looks at her checkbook, nothing there. Her rent is due. She's got to pay the bills and get some groceries for her kids. We're telling her, okay, interrupt the thought about you're in poverty or whatever the negative thought is. Let's choose a more empowering one. You just saw Zero Limits Living. You're going to go read the book, Do You Quantum Think? And now we're going to be in a new reality. But she's still broke. She's still broke right now. And what I'm looking at is what is real in the sense of how do we help her actually get money and not just feel good with a new thought. Does that
Well,
make
it's
sense?
not about, yes, but okay. First of all, it's real. As I said, circumstances are real and valid. We're not
Okay?
Pollyannish here.
Okay.
Okay. Real and valid. However, because universal truth, if we could call it that, now that I said there isn't, but everything is paradoxical, is that we can shift the reality. We can shift the trajectory. So when we have a thought, okay, an intent expressed as thought, experienced as the feeling tone of our being, right? That
Mm-hmm.
Seth, the channeled Seth, I
Now,
love
Jane
that
Roberts.
expression. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jane Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling tone. It's not just emotion. Emotion's part of it, but emotion is actually coming from the meanings we give our thought. But
Mm-hmm.
feeling tone is more like resonance. And that's why, so how do we shift anything? Is in order, and this was my big question growing up, like,
Mm-hmm.
how do we shift the world? How do we get what we want in life for ourselves, our communities, our family, the world at large? And it I'm very logical too, right? I have tremendous, thank you God, intuition and logic as well. So, well, if you want to create anything, you have to know the dynamics of what enables us to create. We have been given like the superpowers of creation, the power of mind with those faculties that I said, the five faculties
Mm-hmm.
earlier. And the first one, everything begins with intent. So many times we have what we call in our business unaware intent. Intent is always working. Okay. There's always something resonating and attracting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a question of if you have and sometimes I give another, it's sort of a corny exercise, but it actually works. Like you make two circles on a piece of paper, old world view and new world view. So you think, what's the old world view circle? What's in your resonant field? So if you think of ourselves as 1,000 stringed instrument, and you have an intent and you want these certain, manifestations to show up, but you've got 950 strings are harmonic with each other, that you've got 50 that are not. They're out of
Mm-hmm.
tune, they're interfering, they're giving you static on the radio of your being. So one way of discovering is to just see what's coming out of your what's coming through those lips. And we have clients write down on a piece of paper, okay, what do you say about your financial situation? And it's going to be the good, the bad, the ugly, and the sublime. I'm worthy. I know that I have a talent to give to the world that's worth, right? An exchange that we use money
Hmm.
for.
Hmm.
Um, I I don't think I'll ever make it. I you know, I think I was meant to be part. Whatever you have, whatever you say, you put that into the circle and you look and see what's the theme there. Well, I think I should have money, but what's the thread, I should say? Because you look at all these
Hmm.
thoughts like a staccato, just write them down. But these are thoughts are really what's coming out of your mouth. You have to see what are you creating in your resonant field. I think that I should be rich, but I don't know that I can ever do it. So that's like a big network of least
Hmm.
action pathway, right? And so what you do is you look at that, you say, these thoughts are not the truth, like an absolute sense. So what intent do I choose to live from? And then you put this goes into your new worldview circle. So it really is. It's not, it isn't as, what do they call it? It's not hocus pocus, and it goes a lot deeper as you're saying. It's not woo woo la la.
Right.
It's that, and this is where quantum think comes in as what I call a revelation. Because why have we always considered these things woo woo or things that are now energy medicine is way more popular, but let's say alternative, now we call complementary medicine.
Hmm. Hmm.
Why have they been on the side? Because we as a humanity have been engulfed in a limited container for thinking based in a limited view of reality, based in the assumptions, beliefs, and ideas that were put forth by the old worldview. Now, I know we have hardly any time, but I did
Right.
want to say this very importantly. When you look at the institutions today, so when we're recording this, we know, it looks like, okay, financial system is changing, things are falling, the banks are falling apart, all the different systems and structures of society look like they're falling apart. Now, I've been an avid student of astrological energy trends for, I don't know, 30 years. So this is something that we could see astrologically also that's bringing this about. I say God uses the planets to point us our attention where she wants us to be. So when you look at that, our institutions, for the most part, Western, uh, you know, first world countries, have been created with industrial age thinking, either or, conservative or liberal, black or white, rich or poor. It goes on forever, guilty or not guilty. And when you start to look and see that we're in this new age, it's expansion. We're coming into the experience of our interconnectedness, of our
Mm.
oneness, not just as a concept.
Mm.
And then you see, oh, no wonder it makes you feel better. Actually, that's why I'm saying it. No wonder our institutions are breaking down, Joe, because they were born under limited thinking that was genius, fantastic, got us to where we are now. We don't throw
Mm.
it out, but we look and see, just like we do in our lives. And in astrology terms, you would say period of restructuring. Focus is of restructuring since 2008. And restructuring is not throw out the structure, it's restructuring,
Mm.
looking at what's working, what's not working, what do we need to restructure with new thinking, with expanded worldview in society, and bring it back down to us, right? As my cousin and I say, enough about you. What about me, I. So that's our joke. But the thing is that when No, it's like a sacred task for each of us to be happy and in the best shape that we can be in, because that's what we emanate out to the world. The better we are, and I saw this when I was 15, the more that I could evolve myself. Wow, that is my contribution, no matter what else ever I'm doing. If I'm in a high vibrational state, that's good for the world and it's good for me. So when you look and you see to yourself, what do I need to restructure? What's
Mm.
going on in my life now? It's not like it's falling apart. That it's like, if you know this in advance, then you don't have to wait to get hit over the head by the 2x4 to say, wake up. It's like, oh, we're in a time of awakening. Oh, well, I can't control all the circumstances. Oh, that I can learn to master the dynamics of creation and manifestation.
This is a fascinating interview, and I apologize because I'm going to have to I'm going to have
Okay.
to shut the show down before Nick comes in and turns the camera off. Everybody, I've been talking to Dianne Collins. She's written Do You Quantum Think? I would go get the book. It's on Amazon, but her website, DianneCollins.com, Dianne Collins. Dianne, I'm going to have you come back, but for now, we got to let it go. Everybody, you've been watching Zero Limits Living. This is Dr. Joe Vitale. You can see all the shows at ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. Check out miraclescoaching.com, mentaltimetravelsystem.com, my new book, unexpectedkindnessbook.com. And I want to thank Lux Media Studios, Candace Barr, and Nick running the equipment, and all of you for tuning in. As Dianne just pointed out, we are awakening and you are participating. You are bringing light to the whole planet. I love you all. Expect miracles.